Well, welcome to our digital-only portion of the race for the 109th. There's going to be a new assembly person from the 109th district this year because the incumbent, Pat Fahey, is leaving office to run for the state Senate. We had a debate tonight that turned out to just be a discussion because only one member, only one person who's running for that seat, joined us tonight, and that is Gabriella Romero, the Democrat. The Republican, Alicia Purdy, could not join us tonight. So Gabriella has offered to stay here and answer a few questions from the students who are in our studio audience tonight. They have a few questions for her. So in this digital-only portion, they're going to come out and ask their questions. And I see our student from Albany is making his way to the microphone. So, young man, introduce yourself and ask Gabriella Romero your question.
Hi, my name is Mac of Aline. People call me Mac for short. This is actually my first semester being in Albany, and I'm studying a master's in political science. And one particular question I do have in mind is, what would be your platform for higher education and student life?
Yeah, Mac, that's a great question, and I, come into big shoes to fill with that. My predecessor was the chair of higher education in the New York State Assembly. When you say my platform on higher education, you mean like in general or like in student activities type?
I would say it could be both ways, in general and also for student life, and just like to ensure like student safety in higher education.
Yeah. So I went to Union College and I had a really wonderful experience there. I truly, truly loved every single moment of it, and everyone deserves to have a beautiful time in college, whether it's undergrad or graduate. And I think that the importance of student life, especially as you talk about safety, is one that isn't talked about enough in a general way. We see it more often now with some faith-based violence and aggression that's been happening maybe since last year. But in general, when we talk about safety, it's kind of a different discussion depending on what type of school you're in. Union was an open campus. There are some other schools that are much more open, like in New York City, where it's just completely in the streets, and there are other schools that are maybe closed off. I look forward to working with, at least for the schools in the 109th Assembly District, I look forward to working with local law enforcement to make sure that we're keeping our campuses safe and our students feeling safe. But as it relates to an agenda for students just in general, something that I really, really want to implement, and maybe you and I can work together next year, is having an open line of communication with students to hear about the exact issues that are going on at SUNY Albany. And this is so important because I can obviously speak to the professors, I can speak to the chancellor, I can speak to those that are in administrative leadership, but speaking to students one-on-one, even coming here, thank you so much, but like being open, I'm sure I'll see you next year, but being open to a conversation. Well, I hope so, Mac. Being open to a conversation is so helpful to guide what types of advocacy I need to be doing at the state level. And I think it's multifaceted, like student life, oh my goodness, like I want everyone to have a beautiful experience, but I'll take note and I'll take guidance from the students that are actually there. So I hope to see you next year, Mac.
You've got it in, Mac, if she wins. So you got a stake in the race now.
In my student conversations, and those types of conversations are helpful. Like I'm starting right now to facilitate a faith-based leaders conversation, whether that's quarterly or every other month. Making sure that as a legislator, I have regular conversations with folks that I'm creating legislation on is greatly of importance to me. So. Yeah, we'll see, Mac. I hope to see you next year in my student conversations, but maybe you'll help me create it.
There you go. You got a part-time job, it sounds like, Mac. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us. Are you satisfied? Did you get your question answered to your satisfaction?
Oh, satisfied. It was just give you its own side topic, but because let's just say I'll be very involved one way or another when it comes to at least next year, and other positions I hold in both outside of school, inside of school.
Oh, that's great, Mac. I look forward to talking with you after about that.
I think if you win, Mac's going for your job in a few years. That's
Can't
the
wait.
impression I'm getting. All right, thank you so much, Mac. We appreciate it. As our next person comes in, I'm just curious. You mentioned Pat Fahey, chair of the Higher Ed Committee.
Yeah.
If she were to win, and you were to win, do you see using her as a resource? Is she going to be a mentor for you?
Oh, incredible. Yes, definitely. She's already been such a great mentor, bringing me into different meetings that are happening, soccer stadium or Harriman campus, or these other big pressing important issues that frankly need to be addressed as soon as possible. So bringing me on early has been quite helpful, and I hope to continue that relationship when she's in the Senate.
Okay, you mentioned the soccer stadium. Just for our people who are watching online here, a reminder that we also had a half-hour discussion that was live on television that can also be found online, so check that out as well. Our next student is at the microphone, so introduce yourself and ask your question.
Sure. Hi, my name is Andrew. I'm currently a senior at Union College, and my question to you today is about climate change. With the urgent need to address climate change in the United States, what policies would you advocate for to ensure that New York not only reduces its greenhouse gas output, but also further supports vulnerable communities disproportionately affected by climate impacts?
Yeah, so glad we don't have 2 minutes.
No, our time is unlimited here.
Oh, I love that. So one important point I'll start with is environmental racism that you mentioned. This concept that our Black and brown communities oftentimes bear the most intense brunt of pollution. Here in the 109th Assembly District and frankly within the city of Albany, there's two very specific examples of that. One is the South End neighborhood and the fact that 787 has been polluting that neighborhood through car exhaust for generations. Another big reason.
It's the train issue down there as well.
Correct, correct. The South End neighborhood has a multifaceted pollution that it's experienced. And so removing 787 is a really helpful tool in order to address that generational intensity that they've experienced. But also another thing that I don't think a lot of people realize is that the state capitol and the concourse are actually powered by a generator that's in the Sheridan Hollow neighborhood in the city of Albany. And this neighborhood has also borne the brunt of pollution, literally taking in pollution that's caused by our state legislature, by the Capitol. How terrible. So there's a bill to create renewable, to energize the Capitol and the concourse with renewable energy. There was a study that was done recently about geothermal energy, and so I'm very interested in not only that bill that would have renewable energy be energizing, I'm not using the right term, but energizing the Capitol and the concourse, and that is not only a way to move us towards our climate goals, which I'm sure you're aware of as well, but also give back and give reparation to the fact that this neighborhood has borne the brunt for the Capitol and the concourse. And then as we talk about bills to address climate change and the environment, some of my favorite are ones that actually deal with trash. I'm coming from I'm on the city council now, so I'm constantly thinking about trash. It's like one of the biggest issues for my ward and for constituents in the 6th ward. And there's a bill that would have producers have more responsibility for what's the proper terminology, for the containers that they're using and creating. So extended producer responsibility would have manufacturers have to actually be responsible for the objects that they're creating until they're done. So they have to deal with recycling, they have to deal with exactly where it's gonna go, what landfills, and that's amazing. That's a way that will definitely, once you hold corporate people responsible, you're gonna see a cut down in trash. And that's wonderful. Not only will it help the environment, but you'll see a real increase in quality of life because we're gonna have less trash on our streets. I mean, we talked about the New York Heat Act, that's a great bill. And I could sit here for a long time talking about all the bills I support, but I would just say that those are some of the few ones that I think extended producer responsibility, we would see a real true impact in the trash on our streets, but also some of those two examples of environmental justice that needs to happen that I don't think people know about really, the impact of pollution on our Black and brown neighborhoods in the city of Albany. So thank you for your question.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. As our next student comes up, we talked about the New York Heat Act in our live televised discussion. Just for the people who are watching this, do you think it will get through this year, this coming year? Do you think it will pass the Assembly and Senate and become the law of the land?
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. I can't say with explicit certainty if that's definitely going to be something that passes, but it will be something that I support for sure.
Okay, our next questioner is at the microphone, so introduce yourself and ask away.
Hi, I'm Annabelle Solinger. I'm a senior political science major at Union College as well. So my question for you is, as a senior in college, and I'm hoping to stay maybe in the area after I graduate, I'm having trouble finding affordable housing options for myself. So what is your plan to combat the housing crisis in the area?
Oh my gosh. As a renter, but also as a prospective homeowner, the housing crisis is really, really daunting. Rents are skyrocketing, and it's scary to even look or consider purchasing a home. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. How do people afford it? We need to increase our housing stock, and I think that if we're able to increase our investment in affordable housing, increase our investment in housing in general, just create more housing, that we'll see a natural decrease in the amount of rent that people will see in these potential units. You know, it's hard in Schenectady too. I know you're a Union College student, and if you stay around Schenectady, good luck.
It's a universal problem.
Yeah, but it is a universal problem, and you know, we're seeing it especially in the city of Albany with the lack of actual and true affordable housing opportunities, and people are being priced out of their homes. It's really scary. Something that we saw very recently in the city of Albany was our tax assessment, where taxes were increased. And frankly, I see it from knocking on doors that our older adults are being priced out of their homes. I'm really, really, really scared for them. And how can we protect them in the future? I think as a young person, what you have to do is make sure that you're not only securing good employment, which we talked about before, but also trying to find out a neighborhood or a situation that works best for you, that can give you security, and especially long-lasting security. I can only speak for the city of Albany that we just passed something called good cause eviction protections, which would make tenants protected from intense increases in rent and retaliatory eviction. So if you are renting an apartment and you've been paying rent and you're paying rent on time, but you notice an issue in codes, like there's mold or there's like a window that's broken that their landlord refuses to fix, they can't just evict you because they don't like you, and they can't increase your rent to try to evict you too. So I can at least say in the city of Albany that you'll have good tenant protections if you choose to move there. But the issue that you have is one that we're all facing, myself included, as a prospective potential homeowner in the future. But I hope you find some solace in the city of Albany.
Thank you.
And do you think that mixed income housing is critical to being part of the solution?
Absolutely. Albany also just passed a inclusionary zoning
Right.
ordinance, which requires new investments in apartment buildings to have a very specific percentage of set-asides that would be affordable. To address the housing crisis, we need to use all the tools in our toolbox. I frankly support very creative uses, maybe even state modifications of small zoning rules to allow for there to be creative solutions to increased intense housing options. It's just unacceptable, and it's getting to the point that if local municipalities aren't going to attract or create their own housing, the state will have to step in.
Okay. Our next, Annabelle's still there.
Thank you,
You're
Annabelle.
good, come on in. Our next student, come on in. Introduce yourself and ask your
Hi.
question. Oh, our engineer Arlo is going to mic you up a little bit better there. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Aron. I'm a political science student also at Union College. And recently, since 2022, the state of New York has received more than 200,000 migrants. The capital region has just received an influx earlier this year of its own wave. When areas like Schenectady County have the lowest rate of foreign-born individuals with a bachelor's degree, is there any plan or idea of how to integrate and properly phase these new members of the community into our education system?
That's a great question.
It's a thoughtful question.
It's a really thoughtful question. What I can say is that, and thank you for this question too, which was not addressed in our initial conversation.
We ran out of time.
I know, but is one that I want to be super clear that when we talk about migrants, that I believe fundamentally that everyone, no matter who you are and where you came from, deserves security, safety, and peace. And so just setting some foundation in answering that question and starting truly right there, which is that we are in a period right now where the resources available to migrants is so dire and difficult, and that we're relying on our nonprofit community partners like Capital District Latinos or RISE or Ibero to fill in and fill these gaps on the resources that are needed, whether it's housing or help or education. Our school districts are pivoting quite quickly and doing so quite well. And we're still just kind of getting off the ground to make sure that everyone can feel that safety and security. But your question was about college education,
Yes,
right?
higher education.
Yeah, higher education. I would support any measure for people that want to be educated and want to increase their education and want to have wonderful, high-paying jobs. I completely support any measure we can do to make sure that the immigrants that are here are able to get access to higher education. And whatever I can do on the state level, I'd love to support that in any way that's possible. But I also would love to work with our federal partners to make sure that, you know, those that are choosing to come here are met with safety, security, and peace.
Yes, ma'am.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you so much for your question.
Thank
And
you for the
since we
time.
didn't talk about it in our live televised
Yes.
portion of our discussion, I'll ask you right now a follow-up on migrants, asylum seekers. The state controller says $4.3 billion is going to be spent in New York State through next year, next fiscal year. It's a lot of money. And I think that's one of the reasons it's being called a crisis. Many Republicans, people to the right, think that that money should be better spent on people who lived here already. I'm speaking for them. How do you counter that argument? We see it in the presidential race now quite a bit on televised, quick 30-second commercials that with hurricane relief in Florida right now, that money that is meant for hurricane relief is instead going to migrants. That's been debunked for the most part.
Thank you for saying that.
But still, $4.3 billion going to migrants in New York State, that $4.3 billion is money that's not going to something else, other programs you've talked about tonight. How do you juxtaposition all that? What's the solution? We're spending all this money.
Well, look, Greg, I'm really sick and tired of human beings being used as political pawns. Because the reality is that Greg Abbott in Texas chose to focus on a political ploy as opposed to actually providing help and resources by putting people that are coming across the border and sending them to New York State. And New York State said, let's go. We're ready. We're gonna accept you in, and we're gonna advocate with our federal partners to make sure you can have employment and try to get you jobs and housing. I am supportive of the $4.3 billion that will help support our migrant communities that are here, because the reality is that anyone that wants to come to New York State, anyone that wants to come to the United States and is looking for safety and security, these people are grandmothers, their mothers, their fathers, their children. They're coming here for safety. And the reality is that this money is going to, and I can't speak explicitly, but I can only assume that this money is going to make sure, not just explicitly, people get so upset. It's not explicitly just for migrant relief. It's for things like making sure that our school systems are robustly and adequately funded so that everyone can have a positive education. It's going into investments like creating more housing in general so that everyone can have access to housing. These investments are one that is spurned by the migrant influx, but it's not one that I would say is explicitly going to only benefit the migrant community, because in reality, especially as a New Yorker and especially in New York State, we believe in New York State that everyone should have peace, security, and safety. And so when we have an influx of people coming in, you got to pivot. So I look forward to seeing what that $4.3 billion investment is in, but I can tell you with some level of surety that it will be helping all of us for sure.
Okay, but when you budget, things have to match up. If we do spend $4.3 billion or more, what are the programs that you mentioned tonight have to go by the wayside then?
Well, I don't look at it like that. Again, using schools, that is a really explicit example. I met with the school district a few weeks ago just to learn and take in some of their budget priorities. And the Albany City School District has pivoted so beautifully to create an explicit incoming welcome center that provides dual language opportunities. It provides culturally competent education and food. And while we're investing in these things, we're also investing in our larger infrastructure to make sure that our larger infrastructure can take in these new influx of students. So yes, money is going towards new migrants, but it's also going towards a larger and robust safety net for everyone, so that everyone can also benefit from this influx of investment.
And we didn't, I'm sorry.
Oh no, and you ask what is going to be cut. New York's a beautiful state. we're going to figure it out as we go. But and I frankly haven't heard that billion-dollar number, but I look forward to advocating and learning more about it. But the reality is that New York is a beautiful state, and if we need to make hard cuts, as I've said before, maybe the top billionaires in New York State can pay a little bit more money, and we can find the budget items that need to be found and funded.
And we didn't talk about education tonight, and education funding and foundation aid, but
Yes.
that's, every year it's such a hot topic and such a controversial topic and such a scary topic as to how we fund our schools.
Right, and so, I mean, Governor Hochul very recently has officially and finally kind of provided some security in that sense, but as you know, the foundation aid formula is one that is old and has, good bones, but kind of needs a little bit more of a restructuring. And there is a group right now that is researching and analyzing around the state how they can change the foundation aid formula to make it more equitable as it relates to distribution of funds for schools. So I'm watching that very closely. I look forward to seeing how that kind of fleshes out. But education as a concept is one that not only needs to come from the advocacy for that needs to not only come from the funding side, but making sure that these other holistic related approaches are also funded for our youth. When I say that, I mean after school programming, mental health programming, and food, frankly. All of these concepts are one that are sometimes lacking in our public school system. So to make sure that those holistic concepts are also funded is really important to me. I look forward to working with our PTAs, our teachers, the teachers union, parents, and potentially some student-led organizational groups that I can hear directly from students about what needs to happen. But it's a multifaceted kind of concept, one that I hope to address from all sides.
I look over and I see our student line has ended. Wait a minute, I see lurking in the background.
Oh, he's back.
Mac apparently thinks this is Disney World. You get back online.
I
here
love
for
it.
another
I love
ride.
it.
So Mac, come on up. You have one more question, it looks like.
Mac,
Maybe
yes.
6 more questions. Who knows?
I know.
Ask away.
Yes, Mac.
Because it was like I was kind of hesitant. Like I know we were like I don't know if it's like one question per student or if it's like 2 or 3 questions since I proposed.
You got a
for
fast
the
pass.
full.
Just keep asking.
Yeah, please.
Thank you for the time. But I guess you kind of touch on this a little bit in the beginning, but I was kind of curious about like how you would like your platform in terms of like addressing like the workforce issues in like Albany and New York State, and how would you like ensure like a pathway of like as you talked about before, education, employment, and also on I would say like ways of like do like towards trade and towards like high paying jobs for New Yorkers.
Yeah. I grew up as a youngster with the repetitive statement to me that you should get a state job. And my parents were lifelong unionized PEF workers. They're here with us tonight. They're loving life right now with full pensions, living in retirement after giving 20, 30, 35 years of their life to their state job. And as a child, like I said, I grew up with my parents saying like, getting a state job's the best, getting a state job. When I got old enough, and I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. In college, I had a little internship with the New York State Workers' Compensation Board, investigating fraudulent claims. That was very fun. And when I was a senior in college, I took the civil service exam, again, kind of when I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. And I didn't get my offer letters from the state until many months later, which is something I'd love to fix, that wait time in between taking the civil service exam and getting an offer of employment. But the reality is that everyone deserves a really beautiful experience like I did as a child of these unionized state workers, being able to have robust health insurance, a really wonderful safety net with retirement. So one of the first bills that I anticipate introducing in the New York State Assembly, and no one take it if you're watching, this is I'll see it, it's my favorite bill, I'm excited, is encouraging, like finding a way to encourage the civil service exam being offered at public universities. So having like we'll find a good name for it, a civil service day where it'll be offered and students will be encouraged to take the civil service exam. And for those watching that don't know, a civil service exam is an exam you take in order for you to get access to employment opportunities within New York State government. And there is a job for everyone, let me just tell you right now. Every single type of experience and expertise that's needed, every single type of department, and people are hiring. And people should have, people deserve a beautiful opportunity to be employed at a stable job, having great insurance, and having great retirement. And the state system is one that I really think is a great opportunity for people. So I hope, to answer your question, I really hope to increase the pipeline of young people to state service, because it's just a really wonderful opportunity. And I'm a perfect example of the success that can come from having parents that have a stable job like that.
I answered my question.
Sound
and
good, Mac?
Sounds good.
Anything
Great.
else?
Nope, that's all.
All right,
Okay.
Mac, thank you. Thanks to the rest of our students. Gabriella Romero,
Great.
thank you so much for being here tonight, for
Thank
staying
you.
for this extra half hour or so to answer student questions.
Of course.
This is all live on, not live, but taped online so people can see it. But we thank you. We
Thank
wish you
you.
well. We expect to talk to your opponent, Alicia Purdy, some more, the Republican in this race. And again, it's critical. Don't forget to vote. Election Day, November 5th, Tuesday. It's 3 weeks away. That's
Oh my
incredible.
goodness.
How did that happen? And early voting starts October 26th. I love early voting. I like getting out there early.
Oh, good.
You know, I'm busy on Election Day, so early voting is great for me. But you know, you can go online and very easily find out where you can vote early. Again, this district is all in Albany County, so there are a number of places you can vote. You can find it online just by typing in your information, and it's a piece of cake. So whatever you do, find a way to vote, whether you're going to vote Republican, Democratic, something in between. Just get out there and vote and make your voice heard. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks.